up? Well, we had the season finale of Hard Knocks on last night, and woof, this was, I know, the last couple of weeks we've been kind of saying, it was a good episode, but I don't think it was the best episode, but this last episode from last night, I think was the best episode of the entire series, and there was only 5 episodes, so it's not that hard to do, but still, I think they went out with the bang. I thought it was great. Always getting that behind-the-scenes look of, how things go on in NFL locker rooms from the coaches to the players and the owners and the general managers and all that. It's always so great to see, in seeing just kind of a nice behind-the-scenes glimpse at that kind of cutting process, narrowing down the final roster from, 80 to 53, or 52, 53, whatever it is. Getting a nice glimpse behind the curtain peek look at that was absolutely great, and we were able to see that last night on the show, so that was great. So let's go over our notes and what we were saying and what we saw from the final episode of the Cowboys Hard Knocks series. So here we go. The first note we have up here is the special teams coordinator, John Fassel. He hasn't been getting a lot of play out here, but he's kind of one of the, I want to say one of the best coaches on this Cowboys team, and he is the special teams coordinator. So he's got great, he was the one that had the vasectomy when he was talking to the guys about getting a vasectomy. That was that guy. He didn't get a lot of burn, like I said, in Hard Knocks, but what I loved from him in last night's episode number 5, was that he put this kind of thought out there. Hey, running is a reward, not a punishment. He was kind of saying, when you do something wrong, we send you on like a sprint. Hey, go run a lap, go do some, suicides, whatever it is. But he was like, running shouldn't be a punishment. It should be a reward. And, I was kind of buying into that because, when you run, conditioning, nobody loves conditioning. But, when you run and when you do conditioning, you get better. So the next time you run in condition, you can go a little bit more and a little bit more. You feel better doing it. You don't feel exhausted as early. So you're getting better. And he was kind of, trying to tie that to, being in the NFL and just, every rep getting better and, running shouldn't be a punishment. It should be a reward because it's making you better, and it's all about that mindset. Hey, if we go back, 100,000 years and, kind of instill in the the cavemen, hey, running is actually good. Running is good. It's a positive thing, and then carry out that same thought throughout, the entire history of the entire civilization and up to this point, and we have that same mantra. Just be like, hey, running is actually good, and it's actually fun. Everybody loves running now because it was instilled into us, at the beginning of civilization. It's naturally programmed into us. So that's what I really loved about his kind of final takeaway that we were able to see from him. Hey, running is a reward. It's all about a mindset. You have to get into this mindset of, hey, I'm doing this to get better. So I am a better player, so I can help this team overall, so we can achieve our team goal, which is winning that Super Bowl. So I loved what we heard from John Fassel, the special teams coordinator, in last night's episode. And, once again, one of our narratives going into this kind of training camp season and Hard Knocks overall, since we knew it was the Cowboys, was, can Mike McCarthy coach? Do the players buy into him? Is he saying anything kind of thought-provoking or just something different than boilerplate nonsense to try and get everybody hyped up? And we haven't really been seeing that from Mike McCarthy too much, but really John Fassel, I think he's a little bit of a better coach overall than what we've been seeing from Mike McCarthy. I think everybody kind of buys into him a little bit more. Now, with John Fassel, the special teams coordinator, is that he's just that, a special teams coordinator. So you have a little bit more freedom and a little bit more leeway as the special teams kind of coach than the head coach that has to oversee everything. So I get it from that standpoint. In special teams, that's kind of where everybody that's kind of low on the roster is trying to make the team. So once again, you can kind of mold those minds a little bit more out there, since these aren't, Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott, the stars of the team. They're not on special teams. They're not fighting for their position here. So I just kind of liked what we've been hearing from John Fassel, the short kind of moments that we've been seeing of him throughout the entire series, and I really think it was just perfect the way the final look that we got to see from John Fassel and what he was saying, and the players truly being engaged in that session when he was kind of coaching all those special teams guys. So I absolutely loved that from him. Thought it was a great just kind of thing to say, intriguing. Running, it should be a reward. This should not be a punishment. It is making us all better. So I thought that was pretty solid to say. All right, what else do we get here? We got Micah Parsons, and man, oh man, folks, Micah Parsons could be a problem in this league, folks, like rookie year, like this season, like this Thursday. This man could really set the league on fire. I believe he's got that potential in him as a defensive end. So we saw Micah Parsons learning from DeMarcus Ware, a Cowboys great, a Cowboys legend, and, learning from DeMarcus Ware. I mean, why wouldn't you want to learn from one of the greats? I mean, that was fantastic. And the reason why this is such a bigger deal than what it is just on the surface is because when they were talking, Micah Parsons was being 100% vulnerable to DeMarcus Ware. He was kind of telling him, 100% what's in his mind. He was going through, how he comes off the line. And Micah Parsons ended up saying, every time, my first step instinct is the step here. And DeMarcus Ware was like, if you step there, you're going to lose your leverage. So you got to have to come out like this. And just Micah Parsons being 100% vulnerable and open. So DeMarcus Ware, a legend, can kind of critique him and coach him and just be like, no, give him some pointers and be like, hey, try like this and this. If you think if you're doing it like this, you should be doing it like this because of this reason. So Micah Parsons being 100% open to DeMarcus Ware, that's how you learn and get better. If you can be 100% open, so the other person that you're talking to can know exactly what you're meaning, exactly what you're thinking, exactly how you think, and all that. It's going to make you a better player. So Michael Parsons not holding anything back and learning from one of the greats. I mean, sheesh, watch out. And we already saw him in the first 2 preseason games, getting a turnover, being around the ball, knowing how to force turnovers and create turnovers. He was doing that already. So learning and getting better from a legend. Jeez Louise. So watch out for Micah Parsons. Yes, we know he's only a rookie, but he could have a huge impact year one, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Micah Parsons can do defensively and how disruptive he can be, because honestly, this Cowboys defense isn't anything special. It's not anything, it's not top tier quite yet. It could be. I mean, I like Traquan Diggs, their cornerback. Micah Parsons, obviously, we've been gushing about him every episode, basically, that we see him in. So, man, oh man, I hope that Micah Parsons can truly put this Cowboys defense on the map. And, if he's a captain defensively, getting it done, maybe he can help out Dan Quinn a little bit on, the coaching side, but and make it a little bit easier for him. But loved what we saw from Micah Parsons in last night's episode. This man could truly be a problem in the league, and hey, I hope so, because to get a Micah Parsons big hit every week to talk about, I'm all about that. All about that. Alrighty, next note up here, we got a kind of a nice solid, not the best inside look. I wish the whole episode really focused around who they were kind of thinking about keeping and cutting. And, Hard Knocks really just kind of focused on 3 kind of players on the bubble. The offensive lineman from Mexico, Isaac Alarcon, the running back, Jaquan Hardy, and the defensive edge rusher, Azur Kamara. They really just focused on those 3 players throughout the entire 5 episodes, which I don't have a problem with. I wish we got kind of a broader brush of other players on the bubble, but, we got a nice inside look at those 3 players in depth, so I've got no problem with that. But then they really just focus on those 3 players during kind of the cutting and, who they're going to cut and how they're making that decision and all that. So I wish it was just a little bit more broad in that aspect. I wish the entire episode was all about just kind of, it was Mike McCarthy, Jerry Jones, and the general manager, I think, the COO, something like that, all in the room together, a couple of other coaches in the room, all deciding, going through the roster, everybody on the team and all that, selecting their final 53-man roster. So Mike McCarthy, and this is another thing that we've kind of said earlier. I think we touched on it in episode 1 when Mike McCarthy didn't want kind of really Dak practicing early on in training camp because he was coming off that ankle injury. And Mike McCarthy was like, hey, I've seen enough. I know this man can work. This man doesn't even need to practice. And then Jerry Jones comes down on the field and sees kind of, Dak Prescott. This was after the shoulder kind of little injury, if we should even be calling it that, little tweak. Mike McCarthy was like, hey, why is Dak not going through the motions? Yeah, he can't throw, but he can still go through the motions. So a little bit of different ideology from the head coach and the general manager. Mike McCarthy's like, hey, Dak doesn't really need to practice because he's the starting quarterback. He knows what to do. We don't want to risk any injury. Where Jerry Jones thought is like, hey, I'm paying this man. I need this man to be kind of at the top of his game. He needs to be out here practicing if we're going to be paying him. And if he's going to be our starting quarterback, he needs to be out there practicing every single day. Even if he can't throw, I want him on the field going through the motion, so when he can throw, when that time comes, he can just step right up and pick up where he left off throwing the football. So once again, we were kind of tracking that different ideology between Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones, trying to look for that throughout all these episodes. And I think we kind of found another circumstance or another potential instance here in episode number 5. And, we all know the kind of, the narrative, just kind of a mainstream narrative that Jerry Jones is very hands-on with this Cowboys team, with all the coaches that he's had. And once again, this is why nobody really wants to take the Cowboys job. This is why it's not really a highly sought-after position. It's a highly sought-after position because it is the Dallas Cowboys. They are kind of they are worth the most. They are kind of the richest franchise. So that's why you want to be on this team and head coach it, but you don't because you got Jerry Jones and you're kind of making the final decisions. He's the owner of the team. He's the one that's paying you. You're really going to be like no and stand up to him because nobody's ever done that. So nobody's going to do that really. So that's what we've been tracking, and I think I saw a little bit of a brief moment in it. And once again, we can only react and say what the cameras show us. Couple minute snippets, couple minute clips, 30-second clips, 30-second camera shots of, facial expressions and what they're saying and what they're capturing and what they're showing. That's all. This may not even be 100% true, but this is what we saw from our inside look of Hard Knocks. This is what we saw. This is what we saw the camera and audio capture. So this is what we're saying. So when Mike McCarthy and Jerry Jones were in the room with a couple of other coaches deciding, making their kind of final decisions on cuts, Mike McCarthy was kind of talking about, they were going over the quarterbacks. Obviously, you're keeping Dak. I think they were going with, I think they said Cooper Rush was a little bit above Garrett Gilbert, and then they were kind of talking about deciding what they wanted to do with Ben DiNucci, and the general consensus with Jerry Jones and kind of the quarterback coaches were like, we're going to cut Ben DiNucci, and Mike McCarthy's philosophy was like, hey, I don't want to cut, a second-year player that's still buildable, that's still moldable. Mike McCarthy kind of going for bat on keeping Ben DiNucci. Jerry Jones really not so. And it was just a short kind of glimpse. I don't even know if it was like 30 seconds long, but that was just kind of how it unfolded just really quickly. Mike McCarthy saying, I don't want to cut a second-year player because there is still potential there. I don't want to quit on this guy going into kind of year 2. There still needs to be time to develop and work on him. So Mike McCarthy wants to kind of keep Ben DiNucci. And what ends up happening, they do cut Ben DiNucci, but he does end up getting brought back for the practice squad. So Mike McCarthy kind of got it. I mean, practice squad, you can keep 16 players on your practice squad. So, of course, Ben DiNucci is going to be on there, a quarterback. You can never have too many kind of good, solid backup quarterbacks. So they signed him to the practice squad. But once again, who's making the final decisions here? Remember we kind of said real early on, this was before Hard Knocks started kind of the very first press conference, Jerry Jones getting very teary-eyed and kind of saying he's kind of got, he apologized to, who was it, Jimmy Johnson, about their kind of entire history on what went on when Jimmy Johnson was the head coach and Jerry Jones was the owner. He kind of apologized for that. So we were kind of thinking, hey, Jerry Jones finally kind of figured out, hey, maybe I might be the problem. I may be getting in the way, and was kind of starting to kind of take a slight step back in kind of that helicopter parent role from the owner perspective to the head coach. We were kind of saying, hey, maybe Jerry Jones is finally coming to the realization that, hey, maybe I should take a step back and trust the people that I employ here, the coaches that know how to do their jobs, the general managers and all that. So we were kind of thinking Jerry Jones shedding a tear here to a press conference, saying that he's kind of made a couple of mistakes in the past and now kind of finally correcting his ways. Him saying, I will do anything to win a Super Bowl. We were kind of thinking, hey, he's going to take a step back. That's him doing, anything to win a Super Bowl. Him taking a step back. Him not interfering in the personnel details and how to run the team day to day and leaving that up to the head coach. We thought we were getting that from Jerry Jones. But then he goes down in the field week 1, questioning why isn't Dak practicing? And then we get kind of him weighing in heavily on the final cuts. I mean, should we be taking input from the owners, or should it all be coaches' decisions? If I'm running the team, I'm going to employ my coach because I trust my head coach to run this football team to the best of his ability on what he thinks is going to win a ring. I don't know if I, as an owner, get in the way of that or think I have a superior opinion over that. I think I hire my coaches because I believe in my coaches. But it seems like still Jerry Jones is hiring coaches he knows he may be able to control and get the final say over. So Jerry Jones still seems to be like the same old Jerry Jones that we knew after we thought we were going to get a different version of him this season. Nobody changes, it seems, folks. So it was real quick, it was real brief, but I don't know how much of a final say Mike McCarthy had in totality-wise over Jerry Jones. So, interesting. All right, and then the final thing, we got more great leadership out of Dak, folks. It was a great way to send off Dak in this episode. Great leadership moment from Dak Prescott. Absolutely loved it. They were doing conditioning, and it was only players. I don't think there was any coaches on the field in this kind of conditioning session. It was led by Dak Prescott. How fantastic. Doing conditioning. I forgot what the actual thing is, but it's when you go from, you do it in 5-yard increments. You go from the 5, then you go back, then you go to the 10, then you go back, then you go to, I don't know if they were doing, I think they were doing every 5 yards. So you go 15 yards, then back, then 20, then back, then 25, and then you keep doing that until, however long part of the field they were using, if they were going the entire 100 yards or whatever it was. But Dak Prescott was leading that session. Great vocal leader, a great breakdown of the huddle at the very end. We're a family. One thing that he said, which was fantastic, don't cheat the man next to you. Always touch that line. Once again, that's kind of, that's big. That's big. You're not cheating yourself. And, that goes back to, I was doing that. People were saying that in freaking, JV and varsity. Don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat the man next to you. Don't cheat this team. Hit that line. Hit every single line. You are not only running for yourself, but you are running for the men next to you. We are a family. We are running for this team. If you cheat and don't touch that line, you're not just cheating yourself. You're cheating the entire team. You are cheating me, your brother, who you're calling your brother this entire last month and a half that we've been at training camp. You are cheating this entire team. So get on your ass, touch that line, and let's have a great fucking conditioning session. And that's exactly what it seemed to transpire over there. So great job by Dak Prescott. Once again, we've got no doubts on Dak Prescott. We are rock solid on Dak Prescott heading into the season, and we absolutely loved what we saw from this man every single episode here in Hard Knocks. So Dak Prescott, I mean, sheesh, it's so great to watch that leadership come through the television, come through the camera lens, and everybody seems to be buying into Dak Prescott. I don't see one person on this Cowboys team that doesn't really buy into Dak's leadership or thinks it's phony or thinks it's fake or whatever it is. Dak Prescott is truly seeming like the man, folks. So great leadership once again by Dak Prescott in kind of the worst part of practice. Conditioning, running, pushing yourself, keep on going in the hot Texas weather, the hot Dallas weather outside, in that heat, in the humidity, in the sun blazing down on you. Dak Prescott was still being that leader. Vocal as heck, dominant, wanting to kind of be a leader. That voice was heard. Not a little soft voice out there. Be like, all right, yeah, guys, you ready? You ready for this one? All right, guys. All right, great practice, great conditioning. Very good job, guys. All righty. 1, 2, 3, Cowboys. No, he broke it down on cowboy or family on 3. 1, 2, 3, family. Everybody breaks, and that's the end of the practice. So very well done by Dak Prescott. Absolutely loved it. So that was it. And then, they cut a couple of players. They end up bringing Isaac Alarcon and Jaquan Hardy back on the practice squad, and Azur Kamara ends up making the actual 53-man roster. So shout out to those players still chasing that dream, and we'll see what Azur Kamara, if he's going to have a big impact this season. I don't know if about a big impact, but a nice rotational role, and we'll see if we see him on Thursday night. And Isaac Alarcon, now that we know kind of that left guard, Zach Martin went down, does he get into the mix a little bit more? Do they sign him from the practice squad? So that's another potential to kind of watch for this season on how the offensive line works, and if they bring up Isaac Alarcon from the practice squad. So overall, a great season of Hard Knocks. Great behind the scenes look. Great that we saw Dak Prescott. Loved seeing him. Ezekiel Elliott shined in this episode as well. So great seeing him. And then, once again, just like McCarthy, we really wanted to see. We really wanted to buy into Mike McCarthy here, seeing that he is a good head coach and he can coach, but really, he didn't really impress us throughout this entire series. It's unfortunate. And I had the same opinion of Mike McCarthy coming out of this season of Hard Knocks as I did going into Hard Knocks. Nothing special, nothing great, just kind of boilerplate stuff. Not really coach. I don't really see him coaching up any players, relying on great players. I don't know if he can kind of coach, if he was a head coach for the Lions, I don't think he would have any success. He's just kind of a classic boilerplate head coach out here that can win a couple of games and gets carried by the talent that he has on this team. And we see this a lot on this coaching staff. Not Ben DiNucci. I forgot his name again. How unfortunate. The ex-head coach of the Giants. Maybe it'll come to me in a second, but let's talk about Dan Quinn. Once again, he really only had great success when he was the defensive coordinator for the Legion of Boom in Seattle. Then he takes the head coach for the Falcons and doesn't really do anything. So, once again, not great coaches here on this Cowboys coaching staff. And I would probably say the coach that impressed me the most here, the defensive line head coach, defensive line coach was real solid. I liked him. And then the special teams coordinator, John Fassel, real solid coaches out here. But Mike McCarthy, not a believer, not a buyer into him. So that was Hard Knocks. Great season, great episode, great finale. Episode 1, Episode 5, best episodes. You could say Episode 5, if Episode 5 is the best, I would not disagree. So, great season. And I need all the uncut footage of Dak Prescott. So, if you can give that to me, that'd be great. Hard Knocks and HBO and NFL films. I will take all the extra footage you have of Dak Prescott. So, we will be in touch so I can acquire that. But anyway, great season of Hard Knocks.